Yo, what's going on, everybody? So as you know, everything has changed a lot. Um, we're live, and basically what we're going to be doing today is basically going through like white privilege, not really breaking everything down in depth because keep in mind I'm not like a freaking professor or something, but definitely explaining that I just got into kind of like a little bit of an argument on TikTok regarding it, and some people are very stupid, especially conservatives, when it comes to the topic. So when you see me look around, this is kind of very weird. So the camera's here. I have a separate screen here that's showing like my streaming stuff. I have another, hold on a second. Let me fix my frame rate real quick. It's telling me my frame rate's too high, but I'm like good right now somehow. Hold on a second. Dun, dun. Excuse me 1 second while I get this fixed. Well, I guess we're just gonna have to roll with it. But like I was saying, right? So when I'm like trying to get everything together, it's very weird because right here in front of me is my like main screen, then is my second screen, then behind here is how I'm watching my own stream. So yeah, and also if my camera happens to die randomly, I wasn't expecting it, so just know that. But also when we go over how like when we're gonna begin talking about white privilege and everything, I'm also gonna get into where I've been, because those of you guys who are like fans of me or know, you guys are aware that I've been gone from TikTok too, not just YouTube. I haven't really been posting on YouTube like that, but also I've been gone from TikTok. So I think we can start off talking about that before I get into the whole TikTok beef that I just got in. It's not anything major, by the way, but I just kind of wanted to respond here, and then I'm probably going to clip some of this and put it in my response video that I make to the guy if I ever do, because the guy who I basically got into like an argument with, I'm fairly confident he doesn't have not even the slightest grasp on what white privilege is, because basically, essentially, what is going on is that he's basically made the argument that because Ben Carson is successful, that means white privilege isn't a thing. I don't know. But nevertheless, it's very weird. So before I get into all that, first of all, thank you guys for stopping in and tuning into this live. We're not going to be on me the whole time. Obviously, if I go here, then you're watching my stream now, but we're also going to be on my TikTok page and responding and like reacting to the stuff happening here. So basically, what I want to start off by saying is thank you for guys for like tuning in and everything. And where have I been? So I've been here chilling. It's like, by the way, when I look over there, I'm looking at my other screen, but I've been here, but I haven't really felt like too much of an urge to want to post TikToks or YouTube videos, because like when it comes to the TikTok front, they have literally like shut down my page. I don't know what's happening. Like, you know, I've been stuck at like 160-ish K for a while, and of course it's my fault. Mostly I'd say it's my fault for not posting, but also it's very hard to want to continue posting when you're getting slapped with a community guidelines violation every 0.2 seconds for every single thing that you post, and when you're getting shadow banned. There was a time where I got shadow banned multiple times, and I know this because like 160,000 followers, and then I post a video and it gets no views. That's a shadow ban. So, and it would be like out of the blue, like they wouldn't notify me that I violated anything, and then I just get shadow banned. So why? I don't know, but nevertheless, that really like took a lot of the inspiration out of me to keep like spreading a political message, because I'm like, why am I going to keep spreading a message if no one's going to be receiving that message? So I kind of slacked off of doing TikTok for a while. and that saw the launch of my second page, which I just kind of slacked off posting off that recently, which is where I can just escape and do funny stuff, because a lot of the times the political stuff can get depressing, or it'll be like just too much, so it'll be very irritating sometimes. But nevertheless, what I decided to do was, first of all, I'm going to start posting TikToks more again, because that's kind of where you guys know me from, and that's kind of where a lot of people who know me have got their start watching my content from. I'm going to start posting TikToks more, and then this channel is going to be my main thing. I decided that even though I said I'm going to start posting TikToks more, it's not going to be anywhere near the frequency as like back in maybe June, August, September, that time. That was like the prime of my page then, because it's just hard to post when every time you're getting community guidelines violations. I can't say the N-word, like anything like that, even though that's part of my dialect, basically how I grew up. And yeah, like just little tiny things like that make it tedious to post. So this channel, as you can tell by the quality of everything and how everything's going now, is going to be my main priority going forward. On this channel, I'm going to be live streaming political content. I'm going to be playing games with my friends, doing music reactions, regular like video reactions that you guys want me to see, vlogs, everything like that. I got a vlog coming up soon for New Year's. Wishing you a Happy New Year's in advance. Thanks, James. I appreciate you. Happy New Year's too. When I look that way, I'm looking at chat. But yeah, this channel is going to be my main priority, and hopefully this is going to be the start. And again, those of you who weren't here at the very beginning, if my camera dies, I have another battery charging, so I'll immediately swap it out, but just know it wasn't my fault. So, I'm just happy everything's not lagging right now. So, we're good. That's what we're going to be doing moving forward on this channel. Going to be a lot of content coming, way more consistent than before, and hopefully 2021 we can, like, blow this channel up. But yeah, getting back to that, we'll probably get back to that at some other point, but the purpose of today will be reacting and responding to, first of all, let me go over here. Reacting and responding to this guy, because basically, I'll play the videos out, and then I'll show you, like what the line of thinking is. So here, if we go to, first of all, I got mentioned in one of this guy's videos. Let me try to scroll down and find the original video that I was mentioned. I was mentioned in this video. And this
when I ask white and black liberals if white privilege exists, why is it almost every time they can never give me a source? They give me just beat around the bush answers. Meanwhile, Indians in America make $100,000 on average. Meanwhile, 61% of Nigerian Americans over the age of 25 hold a graduate degree, compared to 32% of the U.S.-born population. According to the Migration Policy Institute, not some leftist university. Go check this out, y'all. Great article, by the way. And just across the board, not just Indians, Asians overall are in the highest salary group in this country. Is it me, or does it look like Nigerians and Venezuelans are doing very good in the aspect of business? Also, I made a funny observation. Why is it when it comes to black people, it's always the Africans like Nigerians, Algerians, Egyptians, Moroccans, and stuff like that that are always successful and don't complain about white privilege. But when it comes to African Americans, we complain about white privilege. Not me. When I ask white and black...
Okay. So that was his original video. And it's frustrating because, like, when you're a conservative, it's very easy to say a lot of stupid things very quickly. And as a leftist, it's very hard to, like, refute it because we need more time to explain things because things aren't as simple as they may appear in a given video. So he makes that video, and I did my best. I had to do so much editing on my video to speed up my vocals, speed up the parts where he talks and everything, cut it, make sure everything's, like, regimented in order just to get my message in the video. And even then, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to because there were still things in the video that could have been said better or that I couldn't put in because I didn't have enough time because they only limit me to 1 minute, which is why I'm going to start making a habit out of sort of responding to various things that I'm called out on TikTok and also off of TikTok here, so where I have more time to give a full-fledged response. So this was the guy's first video. And then
when I ask white and black,
this dude is loud. Then let's go back to find my video on it.
And black liberals, if white privilege exists.
And then this was the video I posted recently. By the way, the private videos that you see is because I always upload something private before I like download it to my phone and then edit it and everything. Just because it makes it easier, the whole filming process and everything, so I can do what I want. But just as for reference is what I mean when I talk about TikTok like clamping down. Like, you can see by the views that like there's clearly a drop off here, and my quality of content has kind of changed, but it hasn't been like worse. It's just, I don't know, TikTok be tripping. But here was the video that I responded to him with.
When I ask white and black liberals if white privilege exists, why is it almost every time they can never give me a source?
Because sources and data don't definitively come down on the side of something. If they did, you would have provided us a source that says white privilege doesn't exist. We both know that's not how data works, as showcased by your video where every source fails to definitively back up your position.
Meanwhile, Indians in America make $100,000 on average. 61% of Nigerian Americans over the age of 25 hold a graduate degree. Asians overall are in the highest salary group in this country. Nigerians and Venezuelans are doing very good in the aspect of business.
Quick pause right here. This chart isn't showing anything about how good Venezuelans are doing in business. It's literally showing people who overstayed their visas and their nationalities. Those visas being granted for business or pleasure purposes.
It's always the Africans like Nigerians, Algerians, Egyptians, Moroccans, and stuff like that that are always successful and don't complain about white privilege.
Let's take a look at all those countries you cited. Do you know what you need to immigrate from one side of the world to the fucking other? How about fucking money? Which would explain why so many of them have higher degrees, because they can fucking afford the schooling. Where so many Americans, especially a lot of minorities, can't. 1970.
Okay.
1979, low-wage earners have seen a 5% decrease in hourly wage. Whereas this was the price of college in 1979. This was it as of 2018.
So basically, let me go back to the first guy's video. So the conversation is that black people always complain about white privilege, even though let me go find the original video I was tagged in. I'm gonna go point by point and break down this guy's video.
When I ask white and black liberals if white privilege exists, why is it almost every time they can never give me a source?
We can never give a direct source for why white privilege exists. And keep in mind, I'm not a liberal, but like they always tend to go on liberals and leftists in the same breath because they can't distinguish between the two fucking ideologies. So we're not able to provide a direct source because that's not how data works. You're never going to find a direct source that says, yes, white privilege exists. What you can do is look at various disparities in studies and lead you to the conclusion that, okay, if this disparity exists only because of race, then yes, there is a certain way in which white people would be privileged in that regard. No one ever, like, you don't go and get a study that says, hey, white privilege exists. And if studies did always come to a concrete conclusion like that, he would be able to provide me a study saying that white privilege does not exist. But what he did in the video was provide data and try to say, all right, look at this. This obviously means that black people aren't like white privilege isn't a thing because all these other minority groups are doing better than white people. So obviously white privilege can't be a thing. Now I believe that he drew the completely fucking dumbass conclusion from that, but what he did was exactly what he tried to criticize the left for doing. He tried to say every single time that he asks us what is white privilege or does white privilege exist, we give him a roundabout answer. And then he just gave a fucking roundabout answer because you can't get a study that's going to concretely say, yes, it exists. That's not how studies work. You have to point out various statistics and analyses and come to a conclusion based off that. And he calls that roundabout when the left does it, but then proceeds to do the same goddamn thing. So that's why I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. So there's that point out the window, and I wish that I could have more time to talk about these things in TikTok, but they only give me a minute. So here.
They give me just beat around the bush answers. Meanwhile, Indians in America make $100,000 on average.
Indians in America make $100,000 on average. Well, first of all, let me Google. First of all, let me get my initial take before I even Google this source and then read into it. The reason why, and he will go into this in the rest of the video, the reason why all these other groups are making more money on average than white people is not because white privilege is not a thing. It is because if your family has enough money, doesn't mean that you immigrated first generation and you're a fresh immigrant, but if your family has enough money to immigrate to the United States legally from a country as far away as India or in Asia or Nigeria, Algeria, anything, all the countries that he's going to say, if your family or you has enough money to immigrate there, chances are, A, you're coming to America for the world-class education that's so touted amongst, like, around the world, which is why a lot of Chinese immigrants come, a lot of immigrants in general. 2, if you have enough money to immigrate from halfway across the world, you're going to probably have enough money to afford the top-notch schooling that you came here for in the first place, in most cases. Obviously, this isn't applicable to every single case. There are still immigrants who come here legally who don't have the best, like, who can't get the best education because they can't afford it. It doesn't mean that every single immigrant group or people who might be descendants or second generation or everything, that doesn't mean they by default have an advantage or by default can afford college. It's just more likely that you can if you can afford to immigrate across the world. That's why. And a lot of people from these countries already come to get American education in the first place, which you need to have money to do. Whereas if you're African American, not an African from actual Africa, if you're an African American and your family's been here for however many generations, chances are, nope, not chances are, the fact is you've had to deal with things like discrimination, redlining, job, unequal like job distribution, stuff like that. So you're going to have the after effects of that. Whereas if you're coming from Africa or coming from India or something, and your family is new here, and you hadn't experienced all that shit from like America's past, then of course you're not going to see the same exact effect as black people. Like, this isn't rocket science. Like, if you're not from the country, or if your family tree didn't, like, originate as slaves in the country, then you're probably not going to face the same trends economically that the people who were brought here as slaves did. Black people 50 years ago were second-class citizens. Were barred from education for the vast majority of this country's history. Were slaves, fought the bloodiest war in American history to keep slavery in the case of the South or whatever, and keep black people in bondage. So do you think that 60, 50 years is enough to reverse all those effects? And you're saying white privilege isn't a thing, and I know he's going to get to the individual choice argument? Like, no, we can say, hey, be better in your individual situation, but we need to acknowledge why we got here and how we're in this how we're in this spot. You can't just say, hey, white privilege isn't a thing because, look, the Asians are here and they're doing better. First of all, there's less Asians, so, and more of them are coming from wealthier backgrounds to get American education, so the wealth is going to be more concentrated in that group. So, yeah, of course they're going to be doing better. Obviously not in every circumstance, but of course they're going to be doing better as a whole. That doesn't mean white privilege isn't a thing. And white privilege isn't a solely economic thing. This entire video is an economic argument saying that because you make more money, white privilege can't be a thing. It's not how shit works. Like, it's really not that complicated. But, first of all, now let's look up this source. I always like looking up the sources for conservatives just in case they're trying to misconstrue whatever it says. I have a feeling he's telling the truth about this. But I just want to check it out for myself. Sorry, I typed slow. And 100K on average. I apologize for my slow ass typing. I was never good at it. Gulf News. Indian origin. Americans higher. There are nearly 4 million people of Indian descent in America. Indians are highest in any group with median income. It's almost double that of the national median. 72% of Indians in America have at least a bachelor's degree. According to Pew Research Center, Indians are the highest earning ethnic group in the U.S. with a median income of Indian professionals. 10 years ago, green card. And it's funny, isn't it? Because these are the same people who align. Like, the dude in one of his response videos has a Trump hat on. Like, the incredibly not diverse, extremely white, like, movement and everything, talking about Make America Great Again, who has taken a hardline stance on immigration. And then the dude points to immigrants doing better than white people in order to make another argument saying that white people actually aren't privileged. Like, weren't you guys just shitting on immigrants 2.5 seconds ago? But when it's a political token in order to use it to cover up or try to get rid of the theory or fact of white privilege, then we point to the immigrants and say, look how good they're doing. Makes sense. But yeah, no. So I'm not that. Yeah, no. So Indians can make $100,000 on as median income. Do you want to know why that is? Because a lot of them are coming from India for American education, which is why 72% of them have a goddamn bachelor's degree. Do you know? And that's when it at the end of my video when I pointed to the average cost of college in 1979, as opposed to now. That increase was something ridiculous, whereas wages have gone up stagnantly over the last 30 years. So if you're having, it said low wage earners lost about 5% in hourly wage growth from 1979 to 2013. So if you're saying that low wage earners, who tend to be minorities, because minorities are the ones who tend to be the most poor in the United States, if you're telling me that low wage earners can lose about 5% in like hourly wages, and meanwhile, the cost of college has ballooned some over 100% over that same amount of time. No shit, low-wage earners and minorities in the country are less likely to afford American college here than immigrants who are coming for American education, who probably already have enough money to afford said education. If you're growing up here and you have to make money here, and you're not as experienced, obviously, because you haven't gone to college yet, because you can't afford it yet, so you have to work a minimum wage job, whereas the minimum wage is stagnant, and workers aren't getting paid enough, so you can't afford to go to college. Meanwhile, people who are coming for the express consent to, not the express consent, but the express purpose to get American education from elsewhere, yes, you're not going to be able to afford it, whereas they can afford it, which is why they end up having the degrees, and we don't have the degrees. It's literally not complicated. But it baffles me every time that people think that this is actually a legitimate argument. So that's one out the way. And I can basically say this about every single ethnic group that he's gonna name here. It's not about like the immigrants just. The immigrants are just better. They just did like. It's not about them just being better than black people, or black people just lying about white privilege, because white privilege doesn't mean that black people are incapable of doing good, or that other people are incapable of doing better than white people in every circumstance. That's not what it means. It's just saying that, hey, the hardships you face in life, it's not because of the color of your skin. Yeah, like, it's odd.
Meanwhile, 61% of Nigerian Americans over the age of 25 hold a graduate degree, compared to 32% of the U.S.-born population, according to the Migration Policy Institute, not some leftist university.
What leftist university has been providing us statistics on white privilege? I'll wait. Because I don't know what leftists you've talked to, but we don't get our data on white privilege from leftist universities. But, yeah, Nigerians too. Nigerians, a lot of them end up being doctors, because if you're from Nigeria and you can afford to uproot your entire life and everything that you, like, have with you and move to the United States, most of the time you're going to have enough money to get education. And a lot of the time you're going to have enough money, not enough money, but a lot of the time you're going to America, like, explicitly to get American education. So no shit. Yes, Nigerians are going to do better than native African Americans. You want to know why? Because Nigerians who are coming here, who end up doing well, just uprooted their entire life to move to a new country, which means that when they step foot in that country, they're probably already financially situated enough to get American education in order to further their career. Whereas in the United States, if you're an African American, it is much less likely that you're financially stable enough to get into medical school or to go to an Ivy League college unless you got a scholarship. Yeah, it's just much less likely, and the reason why it's much less likely for a black person to be in that situation as it is for a Nigerian is because, not for a black person, Nigerian, they're both black, but for an African American as opposed to a Nigerian is because African Americans 60 years ago were second-class citizens, and slavery was how African Americans started in the United States. So when you've grown up and have to deal with that for generations upon generations, and now we're just like a few years removed from us being able to build wealth again in some fashion, of course, people who haven't had to experience all that in America because they were in Nigeria can come here and probably do better than African Americans. It's not that complicated of a concept.
Go check this out, y'all. Great article, by the way. And just across the board, not just Indians, Asians overall are in the highest salary group in this country. Is it me, or does it look like Nigerians and Venezuelans are doing very good in the aspect of business?
Hilarious, and I pointed this out in my video. Firstly, Asians are in the highest weight, yes. Asians are also the top recipients of, I think, an H-1B visa, which is for tech in the arts and stuff. They're immigrating here to help American industry. There's a lot of Asians are the biggest demographic on the planet, obviously. So you're gonna have a lot of people who are coming here for work, athletics, the arts, tech, everything like that, medical stuff, obviously. And a lot of them who are coming here have enough money to uproot their entire livelihoods and move to the United States in order to further their lives. So, of course, they're going to be in the top bracket of people here. The top bracket when it comes to income. Now, if you look at this chart, hilarious. He cited a people in the U.S. with expired visas chart to say that Venezuelans and Nigerians look like they're doing very good in the area of business. It says top countries of origin
for business and pleasure. Visa overstays.
Meaning that the United States government gave these people a visa for businesses or for pleasure or whatever, and they overstayed their visas. And then this chart is counting how many of those people who have overstayed their visas are in the United States. And he looked at that and said,
it looks like the Venezuelans are doing very good in business.
That's not what the hell it's saying. That's not what it's saying. So I fucking blew him out on that point. Dude, you just cited a visa overstay chart to say that white privilege isn't a thing? No, that's not how shit works. What do you mean? So yeah, moving swiftly along, because I don't even know why the hell he put this in the video, honestly.
Also, I made a funny observation. Why is it when it comes to black people, it's always the Africans like Nigerians, Algerians, Egyptians, Moroccans, and stuff like that are always successful and don't complain about white privilege?
Well, first of all, I guarantee you, if you actually sit down and talk to a Nigerian and Moroccan or whatever, who's actually educated in political things, just like anyone is, and who don't have a vested interest to make white privilege not seem like it exists, if you talk to anyone who's educated in politics, for that matter, who actually know what the hell they're talking about, they would be complaining about white privilege. Now, I can admit, if you're an African, or if you're from, originally from Africa and you're just now here, of course you're going to be less inclined to talk about white privilege, because you probably aren't privy to what it is yet. Or privy to the extent of what it is in the United States, because racism definitely exists in Africa, but you probably aren't as introduced to what it is now. Now, if you're a second generation Nigerian or a third generation, and you actually were born here, but your family, your grandpa or your grandparents or your parents are Nigerian, you'll grow up and you'll get to face what white privilege is. And if you care, and if you see to get into politics and start talking about politics, you will have complaints about white privilege because it's something that we observe too. Now, the reason why first generation especially are a lot less inclined to complain about it is because they have just uprooted their entire lives from a different continent and a different country that is not America, and have just now come to America to work, having not experienced and having to grow up with probably the white privilege and the white like aspect of society that is so dominated in the United States. Yes, if you grow up in a completely different area your entire life and then you move here and you work, you probably aren't going to be too familiar with the socioeconomic factors of the new country until you live there for a while. Like, that's why you won't see them complaining about white privilege as much, even though I know my dad's Liberian, and he was born and raised in Liberia and moved here. And he is a liberal, and he can tell you that white privilege is definitely a damn thing, but what my dad thinks on the issue isn't really important here. It's an anecdote. So yeah, there is no, hey, it's just because they don't complain, they just put their head down and they get to work. No, they are probably less likely to complain because they haven't been introduced to it as much yet because they're new to America. Now, if you're talking to the child of a Nigerian immigrant or something like that who's been in America his whole life and growing up here, they'll probably know something about white privilege because it's a thing. So I don't get what this point even is.
But when it comes to African Americans, we complain about white privilege.
The reason why we complain about white privilege as African Americans because white privilege has directly fucking affected us. Because white privilege was established in the fact that black people were brought here as slaves. There weren't black people here before the slaves were here. Our first contact with North America were as slaves. We were as slaves until the 1860s, where we proceeded to be in a massive war America proceeded to be in a massive war just over the concept of outlawing slavery. And then, after that, we had a short period of prosperity where black people could actually do shit that they wanted while the northern soldiers were in the South and making sure that they weren't prosecuted after having been, like, newly freed slaves. Then immediately after that, we get sucked directly into Jim Crow and segregation and fucking blackballed out of the American economy for decades until the 60s. And still after that, still to this day to a certain extent. That's why black people fucking complain about white privilege. Because that's how we were introduced. We were introduced via white superiority. Our first contact with this country was via white superiority. Which is why black people here can complain about this shit because it was ingrained into our society. And that's why black people as a whole are behind today. You can point to every individual, which he proceeds to do in his response videos to me. You can point to individuals and say, hey, like, if you took someone who happens to be black and happens to be poor, and you said the reason why you're poor is because of white privilege, you'd be like, what the hell? You're just absolving the guy of all his personal responsibility. That's a stupid thing to say. But if you were to say, hey, why is it that black people as a whole make so much less money than white people? Why is it that black people as a whole go to jail so much more often? Why is it that black people as a whole are just so far behind in every socioeconomic factor, basically, compared to white people? Then if we're saying black people as a whole, we can turn around and be like, okay, slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, everything like that, and point to the long list of shit that has happened to black people as a whole. Yes, pointing to a massive socioeconomic problem to explain the problems of one person is bad. Pointing to a massive socioeconomic problem to describe the problems of a massive socioeconomic group is how you're supposed to fucking do it. It's how brain cells work. So yes, nobody on the left says that the reason why every individual black person, or the reason why this black person in particular is behind, is because of white privilege. No one says that. We say, okay, the reason why you're behind is because maybe you didn't work out, you didn't study hard enough, you got to pass this test, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, everyone's life differs. But if we're looking at the overall outcomes of an entire group, then citing the massive problems that affected that entire group previously would be the logical thing to do. It's not that complicated.
Not me.
Not me, at least. Okay, so, yeah. Basically, that is my actual response to this video. It's fucking stupid. Chock full with misleading ass studies and shit that have nothing to do with proving white privilege exists. Because this entire time I've been talking about economically, how much money you make. White privilege isn't solely just how much money you make. White privilege has nothing to do with how much money you make on an individual level. If you're saying that black people as a whole make like 1/16 of white people making, of what white people make, then you can say, yeah, racism, the history of how black people were treated has a role to play in that, because the black people as a whole have been stifled by the various things that have happened. But no one is saying that white privilege is just because you're making less money than a white person individually because white privilege. No one says that shit. That's why I said he doesn't understand what white privilege is. So, yeah, and white privilege don't exist apparently. Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the social part of white privilege. You're just identifying the economic one. So, this dude has made 3 videos about me, or 4? Yeah, 4 videos about me. So this was the first one.
If they did, you would have provided us a source that says white privilege doesn't exist. We both know that's not how data works, as showcased by your...
Oh, Zavutsuka. By the way, where my Russians at? They know what I said.
I think I know what suka means, and I think that's a cuss word, so I'm just not gonna... But I don't know what he said, so...
Anyway, here we go again with you black liberals trying to keep the fallacy of white privilege alive for
Whoa, identity politics.
What? It doesn't work. Stop. Quit it. Drop the narrative. I don't even know who you are, but since you felt the need to make this video, let's get into it. Let's start by defining white privilege. Because it's obvious that you don't know that white privilege is actually subject to majority, not the entirety of the white race. Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? White privilege is subject to the majority, not the entirety of the white race? If you're saying that if you're arguing that white privilege doesn't exist, then wait a minute, hold on. If your argument is that white privilege doesn't exist, then how the fuck is white privilege subject to the majority of white people? Is that what he's saying? Am I tripping? If you're telling me that white privilege doesn't fucking exist, then how in the world is it applied to the majority of white people? Then you're saying it does exist, but it's just applied to the majority and not the entirety of white people. And I'd argue, no, but even if it was only for a majority of white people, that's still an issue we need to resolve. Because that means that a majority of white people are benefited in some way, shape, or form just off simply being white. I'd argue that all of white people are benefited in some way, shape, or form as of being white, just like if you have 2 parents, not just like, but if you have 2 parents, you're also benefited in that way. There are various privileges. My issue arises when a privilege happens because of something that is completely fucking arbitrary, like race. Like you're much more likely to get treated a certain way if you're white as compared to black or as compared to any other minority. That's the social aspect of it. He spent the entire time talking about economics, and it's now showing me the fucking definition of white privilege right in front of my face, and he doesn't even know how the fuck to, like... Let me pull back a little bit. Let's read this definition. Inherent advantages possessed by a white person on the basis of their race in a society characterized with racial inequality and injustice. So, by that definition, white privilege exists. Because my guy, even if you wanted to prove that it didn't exist, the thing says inherent advantages possessed by a white person. He spent an entire video only talking about economics and saying, hey, Asians make more money than white people, so white privilege doesn't exist. Advantages. An advantage could be how much money you make, how serious people take you, the response from police when you do certain actions as opposed to the response of a black person were to do the same action, the response from the media when a white person shoots up a school as opposed to if a Muslim person bombs people. One's a terrorist, one is just a mentally ill person. One is, when a Muslim commits a massive terrorist attack, we need to bar all Muslims from entering the country. Whereas when white people repeatedly shoot up schools of children, then it's just the guns don't kill people, people kill people, and he was mentally ill, and we need to do something about mental health while doing nothing about mental health because it's just a damn talking point. Like, judging the actions of an entire group based on the actions of one person is something that mostly happens to minorities. That doesn't happen to white people. There are multiple layers of white privilege that he completely fucking ignores in order to just make a economics argument. No, white privilege does not equal how much damn money you make. That's not everything. Continue.
Keep that in mind, actually. And just a quick question, how could one be inherently advantaged just simply because they're white?
The way people can be inherently advantaged just simply because they're white is because white people started the country. White people enslaved black people. White people stereotyped almost every single immigrant group to come to this country in the past. So there's going to be a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of stereotypes that you have that might be negative towards minorities, but won't be in the same about white people, or that white people may have towards other minorities. Or, let's just say if you're a lawyer and you're black, you're probably going to make less money than if you're a lawyer and you're white. Like, it's just... What? Like, that's how. When the system was entirely set up by white people for white people, when black people were considered property, when black people couldn't get an education, couldn't have any literacy, couldn't vote. Yeah, the people who were benefited were white people. And that shit just ended a good 60 years ago. So if you're telling me that we can have like 200 years of just straight oppression on black people, then 60 years of post that, not even complete freedom, but post that, and now you're telling me that how can white people be benefited by being white? Where were you the past 200 years? Where? And now he's going to point to Ben Carson.
I'm going to give a few examples on why white privilege doesn't exist. By the way, I hope to be like him one day. He's literally the example of why white privilege don't exist. And I have a similar background to him, actually.
You're going to have to watch this video on his page, because I'm not about to sit through it again. But basically, this, in the next, 2 videos, is just going through Ben Carson's life, about how he was born in a very crime-infested area, and how he taught himself to read. His mom couldn't read. His whole family got in love with reading, and then he got into an Ivy League college, and he became a brain surgeon. Yee! I already watched both of those parts, and I'm not going to watch them again here, because I have a rebuttal for that you guys can probably already fucking predict. I'm going to watch this last part, because I didn't see what he had to say in this part.
Source.
Because sources and data don't...
Now, before I get into the facts, let me explain why I brought up the whole Ben Carson thing and why that's like...
Wait a minute. What happened to my audio? Oh, wait, I just turned it down. I'm an idiot. Wait a second. My audio just went out. Hold on. Oh, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Alright, and we are back. Okay, just got the audio situation figured out. But now, let's get into this video.
The facts, let me explain why I brought up the whole Ben Carson thing and why that's like...
Oh, wait, I think his video glitched. Oh, TikTok has censored me. TikTok has censored me because I gave facts about white privilege and issues in America. I like this comment, though. I like this comment. They just re-upload. It's not that hard. Okay, that's why the other video exists. That's why the other video exists. Okay, let's see what he says here.
Because sources and data don't definitively come down on the side of something. If they did...
Ladies and gentlemen, that comment right there was the reason I gave anecdotal experiences. But now I'm going to give you the fact. Now let me get in my bag, because y'all got the right one on the wrong day. I said I gave no facts, but now I'm about to give y'all facts. This is the myth of white privilege analysis by the Unwoken Narrative. The U.S. Commission on...
We're looking that shit up real quick. Hold on. Go back, buddy.
Because sources and data don't definitively come down on the side of something. If they did...
Ladies and gentlemen, that comment right there was the reason I gave anecdotal experiences. But now I'm going to give you the fact. Now let me get in my bag, because y'all got the right one on the wrong day. I said I gave no facts, but now I'm about to give y'all facts. This is the myth of white privilege analysis by the Unwoken Narrative.
The Unwoken Narrative. Myth of white... I'm sorry I typed slow. Privilege analysis. Unwoken narrative. Where's the unwoken narrative? Where's the unwoken narrative? Hold on.
White and black liberal.
Shit, I'm sorry. Unwoken narrative.com. What the hell? Unwoke narrative. Equality, not always good. On the front page of this fuck-ass website? I want to read this shit. Equality is not always good. Venezuela is more equal than the United States. However, Venezuela, in Venezuela, 96% of the people are poor and 70% live in extreme poverty. The United States is 17th in free... I wonder if they cite any sources. Heritage Foundation. Makes sense. Heritage Foundation, you know that right-wing think tank? U.S. Mission. Hold on. Rank 15, 17-ish. Inequality. Freer countries tend to have greater inequality than those heavily regulated. By which metric do they determine the inequality? Did they just pull this shit out of their ass? Like... Venezuela is more equal than the United States. I don't know by what fucking metric they're determining that. But the 96% of the people are poor. Extreme poverty. Is this more equal country? Technically, yes. On the other hand, the United States pays purely on a metric of being equal will be considered less equal than Venezuela, yet the standards of living per average citizen are much higher than that of Venezuela. Yes, do you want to know why the standard of living is much higher in the United States than in Venezuela? Maybe because the Venezuelan government based their entire income and their funding behind all of their social programs off of fucking oil, and then when oil prices fucking tanked, they had no other source of income for their economy, thus plummeting their goddamn economy into the water. What the fuck does this have to do with equality? Bro. And this is everything. This is all they cite to say that fucking equality might not always be a good thing. Would you prefer to live in a country where it's poor and equal with little to no chance of upward mobility? Have you seen the United States? If you're born poor, the chances of you dying poor are infinitely more probable than the chances of you striking it rich. Infinitely. The chance of you even making it middle class. Lack of upward mobility. There's no fucking upward mobility in the United States anyway. But the fact that this is this guy's source is hilarious. I click on this shit and immediately see equality might not. All the voter fraud evidence. Without legislative approval, PA Secretary of State removed signature verification for absentee mail-in ballots. All of these shits are bullshit. They've lost every single lawsuit, and there's actually a segment on this about fraud. I want to... Hold on. Unwoke narrative. Is there not even a fact check on this random ass source that he's provided? There's not even a fact check for these guys. There's not even a... Hold on. I can't find any, like, research about the credibility of these guys. Well, I mean, obviously it's bullshit because we just saw what the fuck's on their front page, but, like... The myth of white privilege analysis. We're gonna go through this whole fucking thing. In 2019, there were an estimated 270,607 white homeless Americans in America. One does not get a pass because of their skin. That's not what the fuck it means. Oh my god, let's see what he's gonna say.
U.S. Commission on Civil Rights show Asians are more likely to secure a mortgage than white and black people. White privilege where? Or remember in 2019 when almost 300,000 white people were homeless? Homeless Research Institute stated that 49% of people experiencing homelessness on a national level are actually white. Not other racial demographics. White. And you guys are going to say, that's because there's more white people. That's because there's more white people. Well, last time I checked, didn't you say black people were suffering more than any other racial demographic? Especially in addition to white people?
Do you not know what percentages are? Holy fuck. If white people are 75% of the population, so what up? If white people are 75% of the population and 49% of the homeless people are white, that means that they are a vast majority of the population, but a minority of poor people. Now, if you take that 300,000, let's do some fucking math real quick on my phone. there were 270,000 607 homeless white Americans. Let's say, how many white people were there in America? Oh, 73% of the population is white. That's 234 million. 370, 202. Let me put that number in the calculator. Because we're going to do some fucking quick math. So let's say 270, 607 divided by 234 million. 234 million. I'm sorry, this is tedious, but I want to prove a point here. 370, 202. That means 0.01 fucking 5 per 0.0015%. Not even percent, because I'm pretty sure you'd multiply that by what, like, that would be like 0.1% of the population. Yeah. 0.1% of the population of white people were poor. Now, let's look at fucking black people. How many black people were poor? On the other hand, the poverty rate for naturalized blacks is 11.8% compared to 25.1% for native-born blacks. How many? Okay. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I got my math wrong, so I'm going to look up just the poverty rate of whites. Poverty rate for naturalized whites. Wait, yeah, the poverty rate for naturalized and Oh my god, I wish I could. Hold on. I'm gonna Google this right now so y'all can see the bullshit that I'm looking at right in front of my fucking face. Hold on. Read that shit. Read that shit. The dude said there were 300,000 damn near poor whites last year. White privilege where? The white privilege... I'm sorry, I just went silent so I could go look up, like, the actual... Oh, damn it, I goofed on the thing. Poverty rate for white people. Poverty rate for native-born naturalized whites and native-born and naturalized whites is identical at 9.6%. On the other hand, the poverty rate of naturalized blacks, aka black people from other countries, like I described to you, people who are much more likely to have money, enough money to uproot their entire lives and move to the United States, is 11.8%, compared to fucking 25.1% for native-born blacks. Suggesting race alone does not explain income disparity. Exactly. And the other factor is not just individual choice. It would be, why is there such a difference between black people who are naturalized and black people who are native born? Well, black people who are native born and whose families were native born had Jim Crow, had slavery, were second-class citizens, which would explain, were redlined, which would explain why, because they couldn't build their own wealth, why so many more of them are poor as compared to black people from another country who come here because they have enough money to come here and start a different life. This is not a genetic argument. That shit's out the window, because if that was the case, black poverty across the world would be around the same number. This is not a genetics argument. This is an environment argument. People are a product of their environment. If you're raised in an environment where you have more money, enough money to uproot and move to a different fucking continent, you're probably going to have a much likelier chance of succeeding there than you would if you were born there. And the country that we're talking about is the United States, where our history shows that black people, African Americans, were treated immeasurably terribly. So, let's get back to your bullshit. Just so you know, the website that he's getting this from is a fucking right-wing, I don't even fucking know what.
People, make up your mind. We're not going to talk about how whites are 44% more likely to drop out of college than Asians. This should to having more.
White people are 44% more likely to drop out of college than Asians. I'm sorry, I switched to the wrong frame there. You know who's a lot less likely to be able to afford college? Fucking continue. Because you must thought that, like, the issue arises that black people are all getting into college, but then they're just dropping out. No, black people aren't able to afford getting into college as a whole. Like, of course, I'm not trying to say that black people are just, like, fucking completely poor and we can't do... No. There are many black people, millions of black people who can afford to get into college. But we're a lot less likely to be able to get into college because we're a lot less likely to be able to have money to pay for that shit.
Bachelors, masters, and PhDs. Fun fact, victimhood is not a good look on any source.
Because sources and data.
So, okay, just as a reference, 17 minutes ago, time has passed, but the dude had yet to get a like. Let's just go over this video one more fucking time. For those of you guys who did not hear the bullshit that just took place. Let's just go over this one more time.
Data don't definitively come down on the side of something. If they did...
Ladies and gentlemen, that comment right there was the reason I gave anecdotal experiences. But now I'm going to give you the fact. Now let me get in my bag, because I got the right one on the wrong day.
The anecdotal experience he's pointing to is the fact that Ben Carson became successful even though he was born in terrible circumstances, which means that systemic racism isn't the problem, it's your fault. Yes, and Thurgood Marshall was a fucking Supreme Court justice in the middle of Jim Crow. Does that not mean that black people were oppressed by Jim Crow just because one guy succeeded? Continue.
Day. I said I gave no facts, but now I'm about to give y'all facts. This is the myth of white privilege analysis by
the myth of white privilege analysis by the unwoke narrative. That is a fucking right-wing think tank, whatever, that unironically cites the Heritage Foundation and has an entire section dedicated to voter fraud that has been proved demonstrably false. So false that the Supreme Court didn't even want to fucking listen to the case. Continue.
The unwoke narrative. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights shows Asians are more likely to secure a mortgage than white and black people.
And I'm going to go to this source. In 2000.
In 2000.
Kind of outdated, but I'll let it be. Data from the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights showed that 44.6% of black applicants were turned down for mortgage loans. In comparison, 22.3% of white applicants were turned down, in spite of data indicating that black-owned banks had turned down black applicants at rates higher than white-owned banks. Accusations of discrimination were widespread. However, the same report from the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights revealed that the mortgage rejection rate for Asian Americans was 12.4%. That has nothing to fucking do with anything! In other words, Asian Americans were approved at higher rates than whites. You want to know why that is? Because the theme of today, if you have enough money to uproot your entire life and move to a different continent, you're probably going to have enough money to afford a stable living in that continent and probably going to have enough money to afford higher education. So if you have enough money to afford a stable lifestyle, that means if you have enough money, you're more likely to be approved for a mortgage to get a house because you can afford it because you have enough money. Whereas if you're a black person who is native to America, you're a lot less likely to have enough money to afford various things like mortgages which would explain why you get turned down more, on top of the fact that redlining was definitely a thing in order to keep the poorer black people away from the more upscale houses to keep the property value up, thus segregating the suburbs. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. The fact that Asian Americans are approved higher than whites has no bearing on the fact that white privilege exists. Again, we are still solely talking economics here. He hasn't even stopped for a second to think about the social drawbacks of white privileges. White privileges, white privilege. How people are treated. What you're perceived as, depending on your skin color. This entire thing has been economics argument, and you're still losing the fucking economics argument.
White privilege where? Or remember in 2019 when almost 300,000 white people were homeless? Homeless Research Institute stated that 49% of people experiencing homelessness on a national level are actually white.
Let me rewind. Hold on a second. Go back. And again, yes, because 49% of people who are oh wait, I forgot to switch back to my React cam. 49% of people who are homeless were white. Yes, they're also 73% of the population. The homelessness rate for white people is 9.6%. The homelessness rate for black people from other countries is 11.8%. Still worse than native white people, mind you. Then, the homelessness rate for native black people is 25 fucking percent. 25.
Sources and data don't definitively come down on the side of something. If they did...
Ladies and gentlemen, that comment right there was the reason I gave anecdotal experiences. But now I'm going to give you the fact. Now let me get in my bag because y'all got the right one on the wrong day. I said I gave no facts, but now I'm about to give y'all facts. This is the myth of white privilege analysis by the Unwoken Narrative. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights shows Asians are more likely to secure a mortgage than white and black people. White privilege where? Or remember in 2019 when almost 300,000 white people were homeless? Homeless Research Institute stated that
racism is your dominant factor. Impact. Would anyone else like to explain to me how the fuck 49% of homeless people being white is a thing is a point in the basket of white privilege not existing when they're 75% of the population? But he just conveniently misses the fact that black people make up 40% of homeless people, and they're 12% of the population. Unless you're going to tell me that all 12% of the population just individually chose to be fucking homeless at that close of a rate to people who are 73% of the population, you are out of your goddamn mind. If you think that this is a point in your column, you've just proved my point.
that 49% of people experiencing homelessness on a national level are actually white, not other racial demographics. White. And you guys are going to say, that's because there's more white people. That's because there's more white people. Well, last time I checked, didn't you say black people were suffering more than any other racial demographic? Especially.
Just because there's a higher number does not mean that it is a higher percentage. Dog, if there are 10 black people and one of them are poor, as compared if there's 100 white people and 4 of them are poor, yeah, 4 is way more than 1. But the 1 is out of 10. The 4 is out of 100. So the 10 would be getting hurt by the fact that that 1 is doing badly way more than the 100 would get hurt by the fact that that 4 is doing badly. Do you fucking understand proportions? So even if this is the case, black people would still be suffering more because there's less of them and their poverty rate is so fucking close to white people. Or not poverty rate. The amount of people who are poor is so fucking close to white people, even though they are so much more of the population. You have proved our argument twice in 2 frames.
Especially in addition to white people, make up your mind. We're not going to talk about how whites are 44% more likely to drop out of college than Asians.
Education is another area. Oh, this is from the same website, by the way. Not the actual credible one that we looked at, the fucking conspiracy theory, whatever shit. Education is another area where Asian Americans surpass whites. According to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, 23% of white students drop out of college. Meanwhile, only 16% of Asian students drop out of college. Whites are 44% more likely to drop out of college than Asians. The issue isn't black people and white people or other minorities and Asians getting into college and then dropping out, thus white privilege doesn't exist. The issue is who the fuck can afford to get into college. Asian people are more likely to afford to get into college because they're most likely coming from wealthier backgrounds from other countries to get American education. White people are more likely to get into college than black people because white people have held all the fucking wealth in this country since the beginning of time. The issue is getting into college. Why are black people less likely to get into college? Because they're less likely to have money. Why are they less likely to have money? Systemic racism, redlining, Jim Crow, slavery. This is literally like 50 years ago we're talking about here. This is not some faraway fucking Neverland. And some of this shit still happens. You think the problem is black people are dropping out of college?
To having more bachelor's, master's, and PhDs. Fun fact, victimhood is not a good look on any course.
Yes, and denial is not a good look on anyone either. There's a difference between saying each individual black person will never do good in their life because oppression and it's just the end of story. There's another thing to say you can do as much as possible in your circumstance, and we need everyone to do as much as possible in their circumstance to live an awesome life. But we need to acknowledge that the reason why demographics as a whole tend to be behind white people, or black people as a whole, I should be more specific, tend to be behind white people is not because every individual chose it. It's because of shit that we cannot control. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, like Ben Carson that he points to, or like LeBron James, or Michael Jackson, or Michael Jordan, or Michael B. Jordan. All the fucking Michaels and the Jordans. Yeah, there are exceptions to the rule. The issue is that there are exceptions to the rule. That's the issue. And theoretically, you can say every person who's famous for being an athlete or whatever is technically the exception to the rule when it comes to the general scope of the population. But when you're an exception to the rule because the most likely outcome for your people is to either be poor or something like that, that's a bad reason to be the to be the exception to the rule. If you're going to be the exception to the rule, we want to just be like, oh, okay, you've just done something mad that it's not expected for the average human to do. But when that distinction begins to be drawn on racial lines because of the racist history of the United States and how that turned out, that's when we begin to have an issue. And it's people like you who sit here and actively fucking deny that shit that is why we can't get progress. And you sit there and you scathe saying, you're just trying to be oppressed. No. We're saying, hey, do everything that you can to live your life. But let's acknowledge that the reason why groups of people, when we're analyzing groups of people, we have to analyze things that have harmed that group of people in order to create the trends that we see. So, yeah. You're going crazy. Exactly, I'm going crazy because these people are fucking stupid. So, yeah, that was that. This was this situation. I needed to make these videos because there's no way in hell I'm wasting 4 videos on my fucking channel individually responding. I'm just gonna clip parts of this live and put it on my channel. It's hilarious to me. It is absolutely hysterical to me that people can sit here and make the argument that white privilege does not exist
because, hey, Asian people make money. No shit. And then the source you provided me is from fucking The Myth of White Privilege analysis. Fighting for the truth. Facts matter. A guide to voting Trump. 140 plus reasons to vote for Trump. Black Americans. First bullet point is already fucking false. These are the people that are fighting for freedom. These are the people that are fighting for facts. Read the first bullet point. Already fucking false. Let's read this. Mm-hmm. 2007, we got strengthening HBCUs total. Let's go 2007. 2008. $85. What does that say? 85 minute. 80. Wait a minute. Why is this chart so fucking confusing to read? Hold on. Wait, why'd the mandatory amount go down? The total mandatory amount that was, like, you have to give, apparently, I'm assuming that's what it means by mandatory amount. In 2008, it was 85 mil. 2009, it was 94. 2010, it was 94. 2011, 94. And it was 94 up until 2013, it was 89, then 87, then 78, then 79. And then it's just been at 79 ever since. Wait a minute. 2008. $238. Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I swear, because, when it comes, that's already false. Because, first of all, hold on. In 2018, Trump appropriated more than 360... Oh! It's talking about in 1 year... So yes, the first bullet point here on the source that he uses, when it comes to reasons to vote for Donald Trump, the fact-based, yes, the very factual-based website that's explicitly telling you to vote for Donald Trump. The first bullet point about black Americans, Trump has appropriated more money than any other president to HBCUs. The link shows that in 1 year, he just beat Obama's record for 1 year in giving. That he had in 328, he had 328 billion or whatever in 328 million in 2010, and Trump beat it with 360. In 1 year, he beat the record. Never minding the fact that the Obama administration donated over $4 billion over a course of 7 years, averaging about, what, 500 million every year, almost? To Trump's, what? Not even come close to that? I mean, yeah, Obama had double the time because he wasn't a one-term president, but not only was he not on track, this doesn't even show the data for 2020, which, with us being in a goddamn depression, dang near, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have gotten there either way with another, with another 4 years in office. Like, let's not get it twisted here. Yes, he technically did in 1 year, and every president that held that record since they started keeping track of funding. So it's funny how they can call, like, Clinton and that racist and everything, but then tout... They can call Clinton and everything racist for the crime bill and shit, right? But then they can tout the fact that, oh, Trump has most funding to HBCUs, which means he obviously isn't racist, disregarding the fact that Bill Clinton also had the record for the most money for HBCUs. What? Every president literally has had that record. That is no indication of why black people should vote for Trump, why anyone should vote for Trump, or how he's not racist. The very first bullet point on this fact-based website is fucking false. Makes sense. But yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this thorough ass whipping of someone who obviously needs to do more research into shit that's not propaganda. And this will be the first of many streams. Fully expect a lot more streams like this to take place where I just rant about political shit. Maybe some debates will happen, kind of like a Vosh wave type thing. But nevertheless, if you did stop by to watch, I very much appreciate you. I just beg that everything went smoothly during this live. This is the first time I actually tried live streaming on this new setup and shit that I have. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Look forward to some of these clips coming out on this channel and on my TikTok. And yeah, so have a nice day, I guess. Have a nice night. Oh wait, I didn't do my intro correctly. Oh shit, my camera battery died as soon as I was about to outro. Hold on, I gotta do this outro correctly, so now I gotta replace the camera battery. Sorry. There we go. That's my bad. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm putting this battery back on the charger. Yep, there we go. Alright, here we go. Back. Now, like I was saying, if you did enjoy, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Yes, you are indeed late. We're wrapping up now. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're looking forward to more content coming from me. I'll try to post daily. And that's going to be a tough thing to ask, but I'll try to post daily. I don't know about tomorrow, though, because I have plans for New Year's. So, yeah, but I hope you guys did enjoy. I hope you have an awesome day and night wherever you are. And see you guys.